Oh, dust over top. It was 12 o'clock, like dust behind target. Man, they're close. Bottom left corner, 8 o'clock, dust just off edge. A hit, got him, top right, on plate, mate. Yay!
And that's about as good as you get for a finish.
Awesome.
I'm stopping at that, but that one didn't feel like I could get closer than a 26-inch group.
Yep. Lots close.
Oh, it's super close. It's super trying.
Yeah.
But I was chasing the wind.
Yep.
Keep going left, so I keep on just adjust a little bit. It's really predicting it.
Yeah, yep.
But, you know, that was closer to, don't get me wrong, I worked real hard, but I was lucky to get there.
Okay.
Well, that was really close. More rounds than I'd want to, but really it was just not the conditions for this little thing. The scope really worked nicely. The rounds working really nicely, but those conditions are a little heavy.
Yep.
And just varying. I've basically creeped back over those shots. I've moved, creep. I've moved 2 mil of hold.
Okay. That's a fair bit.
That's a fair old bit.
Yep.
G'day, welcome to Market Sam After Work. Yes, we got this little one here on target at 3,000 yards. So the 708, which is that round right there, and I'll go through and highlight those as to what they are. But we got on target at 3,000 yards. And I suppose there's a little bit of a story to go with it, and I wanted to go through that today. A little bit of a benchtop talk, but a little bit of discussion because there's some stuff I want to, I suppose, help people understand more, give them some more clues on how they can do what they're doing, and just a little bit of a chat. The rifle that you see is the 7mm08. It's a Remington 700. This was is our police special action. Came out of a full police special rifle, which was a 308. And then in here is a good barrel. I've forgotten the barrel. I'll put that in. I'll put a little list of what that is. But just in 27 inches, 1 and 8 twist with 7mm, and then set up with one of our muzzle brakes, MDT chassis, one of our foreends, our bipod foreends, so the 4AW bipod, using Atlas legs, got our feet on it. We're using all our products as we normally do. And with this element scope in the Theos, which did a really good job, but there's quite a bit of a story to this, and even when you see it set up with a wedge on the front of it, so I want to go through some of those details. First off, I'd say in the 708, using the 708 out of this shot at 3,000 yards has nothing to do with the political stuff going on at the moment, the large calibers, all that sort of stuff. We will still be using a fair few of the large caliber side of things, and there's other bits and pieces to sort out in that sort of path, but we'll be doing some of that to some degree or another, and we're not using the little one because of that. What we're on is a plan that happened from the beginning of the season, where we've got a 3,000 yard spot sort of carved out in the fairly heavy straw out in the field there, out in the paddock there, 3,000 meter spot, and we may be doing other ones as well. But we're working pretty hard, and I really had a plan of the cartridges that we have brought onto the channel, which is a bit about showing off barrels and different actions and things like that. But those ones have been there, and then as the season dries out further, as things get easier to see in the way of seeing impacts and that sort of stuff, we gradually go from the bigger, harder hitting ones with more power that get there faster, and slowly work our way down to the smaller ones. Where we can do the same sort of thing, show how they work, show, whether it's the time of flight or how hard they hit the plate or all those bits and pieces, show that sort of stuff as the season carries on. So really we're at the place where this little fella here, for multiple reasons, the 708, great round, always like the round. Set up in this rifle, this is the MDT, which I've shortened and set up the bits and pieces that shot really well with this barrel, that sort of stuff. But I really wanted to showcase the element scope on the top here, and what it could do and how you could set it up to use it as well. Great scope actually. I used it, you saw it, it's been seen quite a bit around the world on the one-shot correction. That's when I was playing around with that. We're also using the long shot camera out there at the same time as we're testing these bits and pieces, and this rifle and the round's gone out to 2,000 or just under 2,000 yards, but wanted to show it off and put the whole lot together. So listen, that's why we're doing it. There was a lot more to this shoot than might meet the eye in the way of getting that job done. To start off with, we still had 20 rounds of ammunition from what we've been up to, so this would be the second box. This has now shot 100 rounds, this rifle, this barrel. With that, I really felt we had a nice mild wind day, supposed to be in the 9 to 10 k's an hour, so we're talking the 5 to 8 miles an hour of wind is supposed to be what we were going out into. From the south-southeast, so all the bits and pieces should have been pretty reasonable and that sort of stuff. We normally expect the reported wind and the actual wind we're shooting in to be, we're about 50% more in the actual wind we're going to be in. Because we're in higher elevation, both where we shoot from and where the target is higher elevation, we're up a little bit in where the wind stream's going to be, so we expect a little bit higher, certainly higher than what will be in town, which is not that far away, where it's down lower and a lot of the ground, but up here will be a little bit higher, but not terrible amount higher. Well, when we got there to settle this up, every sign said it was a terrible amount high. It was pretty high in its wind. First we basically looked at it, thought, okay, listen, it was also the air's not that great, but listen, let's just give it a shot and see what it is, and maybe we'll come back another day, but let's just give it a shot and see what it is. Went through 5 rounds to get on there. And there's a bit more to the story. Pretty busy time that we're at the moment with all the bits and pieces and keeping up with everything. And I went out there where my phone, which is where I run my Strelok Pro ballistic app, and where I do the basic plug in the numbers and bits and pieces, it had actually decided it didn't charge last night, or the night before I should say. This is yesterday morning where the shoot was. It didn't charge, and I hadn't realized that it hadn't charged even though it was plugged in. Phones technology does that sort of stuff, and it was flat. So basically I wasn't using that at all. But I suppose that's the thing I would say about ballistic apps and that sort of stuff. There is the people who sell ballistic apps and the people who train to them and that sort of stuff that say they're wonderful and they'll fine tune and they'll do everything perfectly. And the better the app is, the closer you'll get to where it's at, to be able to get a one-shot hit and all that side of things. And to some degree, yes, with really good data and with the right, sometimes tuning them, sometimes you don't need to, but you can set them up, and they can be very, very good in the probably up to the effective range of a cartridge. I'm not talking effective range, I'm talking that's, whether it's 400 or 600 or 800 or even 1200 meters, that, depending on the cartridge, then yes, they can be spot on if you can read your wind well enough, which is always something that isn't actually able to read perfectly, but yes, the more experienced you are, the better you'll get at it. For me, it's a level either side of that, I suppose. To the largest degree, what you see out of us, yes, I've tuned my apps, yes, I know what they're doing, but the big thing you're actually looking at with the way I use that sort of stuff is experience. It's not only that I'm very experienced at using all the equipment that I'm using, it's also I'm very experienced at reading the conditions with the sort of shots I'm doing, but it's all based on the fact of I do it in the same spot. So that's a very, very, very big advantage for those situations. Proven no more so than yesterday when I took this out where I didn't have anything. I knew basically what I needed. I'd already done the maths, so I already have it basically in my head, but so I knew what the maths are based on this sort of stuff. I'd set things up to where they should be right place. So then I just had to dial in and make it work to what I expected it to be, which I'd set this up to get the 65 mil, so around the 225 MOA of elevation. And I was going to dial as much wind as I could, which I've got about 8 mil on this one here to be able to dial to correct for the wind side of things. So I didn't use an app to do this sort of stuff. The first shots, I'll put on what the first shot looked like out of what we actually did there. And that's out of experience, out of knowing what I'm doing, but that's where the first shot landed.
Right.
Now I've corrected from there, and then everything, this scope, dialing really nicely, good glass and all that sort of stuff, made that pretty easy to do. But it's, I suppose what I'm really saying with that is that what you're looking at with us sort of thing, the ballistic app side of things, as much as they're great and they're real help, the real thing is experience, more trigger time. The real thing is knowing your conditions, being able to read your conditions and that sort of stuff. And that's really the advantage, the cheat that I have, is I do a lot of it in the same area, so I know what's going on the wind and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I'll get into what I did to make this combination work at this sort of level. I was going to need around the 65 mil, so around the 225 MOA of elevation to be able to shoot at this target. So I have my bipod set up with leg extensions. I have it on my, this is the different base, but my V4 on the back of it. So I've got a really nice platform. It's going to shoot really nicely, but how do I adjust onto it? This scope doesn't have the internal elevation to do that sort of shot. No scope apart from something like the Genesis does. So to get to that sort of level, which is sort of past it for what most people would think you'll be able to do, a couple of things I've done. One is the Nightforce wedge on the front here. And yes, for those people who didn't realize that on these scopes, the Nightforce wedge has the same, that I have an adapter, which is my adapter, and that is the same thread as in the front of a Nightforce, so it means I could screw it on the front, nice and simple. Screw it on there, there's a lock nut in here, I won't pull it apart, but there's a lock nut, set it up there, set it up straight, that goes on the front, and that gives me 100 minutes of extra elevation, which is 28.9, I think it is, of extra elevation, or that's mil, that's extra 29 mil of elevation on the front here. So that's part of it. I needed a bit more than that. I run, on most of the time you'll see I have the ERA-TAC on the bottom here, which is an adjustable inclination base, and I've popped that up by another 10 mil. So I'm running, 20 minutes of elevation. So without getting too complicated on this sort of thing, what I've done is raise the scope up. So I've run the, it's so that I could get out of this approximately 38 mil of elevation in the setup from here. And then I have another 29 mil of elevation on the front here. So it meant that I could get, of what I knew I was going to need, roughly somewhere between 220 and 230 minutes. So somewhere between the 62 and the 60, 66, 68 mil of elevation. That's how I set this whole thing up. So my first shot, I dialed in, on here, I dialed in 36. So I won't get too much more complicated about the maths of it, but basically what I'm saying is both experience and setup is what actually got us to this place. And then in something like this scope that is accurate tracking, has got good power up to 36. I was only running around 25 power, but a decent reticle to be able to use on this side of things. Very good glass and working really nicely, very familiar sort of feel of the glass. I was able to pull it off, and really the scope performed wonderfully. Everything worked really well here. The wind was something we're really struggling with. And then I'll get a little bit more into the shoot. The big deal in the shoot, when I first went out there, we went through basically 5 rounds to, well, actually there was 3 rounds and we're just about on target, to be truthful. And then we sort of started to try and do something at that stage, but really I was struggling because I was holding right across at the edge of the reticle. I dialed on a full 8 mil of windage and I was still right over at the edge of the reticle. And I did a little crack at that. I tried to make it work, and I really got to just short of 10 rounds of doing that and decided, listen, this is just silly. I'm not going to get there at this rate. I'm right over the edge there. And once I'm over at the edge of the reticle and I'm trying to see and work things out and deal with it and that sort of stuff, in the wind, it's buffeting and that side of things, listen, this probably isn't going to work. You know, it's something that I'm pushing the boundaries too much, and it doesn't really, it makes it too complicated to be consistent and to show off what the equipment can really do and what the round can really do. So should I stop? But like I said, we're under a fair bit of pressure doing all sorts of bits and pieces, and we sort of we went to pack up and say, listen, we've got to do this another day. But this was one of the better days in the way of forecast. And yes, you do get quiet ones, but we don't know we're going to be there, and we can't just go out on a good day. We've got to schedule it with what works in with things. We've got to look at the weather report we picked that day, and that's probably the day we got for that week. So it's a pretty big deal for us to not have that when we're trying to keep constant content and trying to get through bits and pieces and get it all done. So a bit of stopping and thinking about it and scratching the noggin, and really decided, hell, listen, no, I'll use a different trick to do this, and we'll give it a crack. And that's what I'm showing here.
Oh, left. Level the bottom edge, half target left. Oh, just off left edge. Oh man, that was close. It was like 8 o'clock, just off left edge. Oh, just behind. Thinking it went 9 o'clock, but just behind target. Bottom left corner, quarter of a target left and low. Bottom left corner, just off. In front, low. Eighth of a target, low. 6 o'clock. Over top, 12 o'clock, just over top. Oh, bottom left corner, just off. Oh, dust over top. It was 12 o'clock, like dust behind target. Man, they're close. Bottom left corner, 8 o'clock, dust, just off edge. Hit, got him, top right, on plane.
Here's the 10 rounds of what we did to finish off this box of ammunition. And made it work. It still potentially couldn't have. I was definitely getting the feeling of just being able to just miss the plate was pretty easy. Hitting it was going to be impossible. But I kept at that path, and listen, we had 10 rounds, so why not shoot the whole lot of the damn things and see what we get. The trick that I used, which is something that's a bit of an old school way of doing it, whether it's target shooting or it was in the field or whatever it was, but there's a way of dealing with wind to get it back to where I was back nearly at the center of my reticle. And that is, excuse everybody, you're just a camera, so you're fine, and it's a safe rifle, but it really doesn't matter, is I canted the rifle. So I deliberately set it up so I pushed my bubble over to the side, got it to where it was stable at that point. With my bipod system, it's firm, it's not going to twist or get off that sort of stuff. I've got to keep an eye on where that bubble is, but I canted the rifle. Now what that does, by canting the rifle, I then, if you just canted your rifle and shoot, what actually happens is the path of the projectile goes up and over there. So it relocates. So by canting the rifle against the breeze, making sure it stayed locked in that position so it was the same thing, it meant it let me fight things and bring the shot back into the middle of the reticle. Everything was maxed out. Not elevation, but the windage was maxed out, and this brought it back over to where I then was close, and I wasn't spot on. I got to a point where it was fine. It was around the 1 mil, but that's where I was actually holding it. You could mess around and keep on going to find where that center point is, which sort of works a little bit nicer. You aren't fighting with elevation changes as well at the same time, but that's what I did. And the next thing I did involved in those 10 rounds is what you're seeing, is I was aware on the first shot we're pretty close, but I'd made a guess on what I thought the wind was doing, and what I felt the wind was doing was it was slowly backing off. It was slowly not pushing as much, whether that's going from a full value and coming back around to where it was pushing in a slightly different angle, and all the different things that winds can be doing. But that's what I actually was up to. I was actually shooting and then adjusting quarter of a target to half a target every shot to creep across, because it was left and it was left and it was left, and I was actually going more a little bit to the right, a little bit to the right, a little bit to the right, a little bit to the right. I'd learned enough from the earlier shots, I've known enough from the conditions of that area to know that what's actually happening is, if I kept on shooting the same, you would have seen it moving across a target or half a target each shot, and I was just one step in front of it. So listen, that's a bit of intuition, that's a bit of lucky guess, some people would say. It's actually just lots of experience at what's happening at that time of day with that sort of wind and what's actually going on. And what we were actually dealing with in the maths of it was a full value, or basically coming from 9 o'clock, was around a 25 mile an hour wind is what we're actually dealing with. We weren't sitting in that heavier wind, we were sitting in more like a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind, which you can hear. And the flag wasn't in that wind, so you probably find that the top end wind that was really pushing it was even closer to the 30 miles an hour. So in some senses you could say completely ridiculous time to be shooting, but I think I've told you the story to make sense of why we were doing that. So last bit I'll finish off with is just for those people that like to know, here is the range of what they look like. That's the 7mm08. This is just some perspective. Up here is the 408 ERA-TAC, there's the 33 Lapua. Down here is the little 223, 308, 7mm08, 65 Creedmoor, and 243. So just some real perspective of how well this one's doing for what it is. It is just a normal high power, they were called over here, but really just a normal centerfire cartridge mounted up in a rifle cartridge, and the 708 being a neck down 308 but running a high efficiency bullet, so a very good ballistic coefficient bullet. Performed really, really well, and I was super impressed with how well that shoot. Actually, the last detail is in that interim of things that actually happen, part of the game that we play in the way of out there doing this sort of stuff, is the footage I've got is of one target at target camera is one GoPro. What actually happened through that process is, in the first lot of shooting getting close, we took out one GoPro, and that doesn't mean we shot a GoPro, it means we hit a stand. It was close to the target, hit a stand, knocked it off. So it wasn't looking at the target anymore. And a GoPro on the other side, the other main GoPro that is the close one, actually not GoPros, the DJIs, these ones, the little Osmos. But that one, it went flat. It decided it didn't want to charge. It did the same sort of thing as the phone. It let the team down on that side of things, or I let the team down on that side of things. So we always have 3 cameras out there because, like I said, been there and played this before. It was the long back, it was the further back camera, which is a little one, a little bit further in front of the target. That's one of the little session GoPros. It was still there. The footage isn't as sharp and clean and nice as I normally have it. But we still have it. So the 3 is, yeah, what you need sometimes for what we did. Anyway, that's what I can tell you. The rifle shooting nice, the scope really happy with. I would come back to saying for people, if it suits you, if it depends on your budget and all that sort of stuff, but listen, they really are doing a good thing in what they've got done there at the Element Optics. Interesting feature that the thread works at the front here for so people who want to stretch things, want to do that sort of stuff. It is a Nightforce biz. You are mixing up brands and that sort of stuff, but I'm really come down to not a brand person. If they're building a good thing, then I want to use it. And of course you could run the TAC things with bolts onto the bottom here, onto the chassis and that sort of stuff as well, and do all that sort of stuff, all with their screw-on bit, which would work for this. And for if you've got stuff to suit your Nightforce, then it's also going to suit the front of this thing here, the Element, in this scope at least. And everything else, so from our bag system, bag riders, that sort of stuff, this setup on this chassis, listen, it's working really nicely. Last bit I haven't mentioned is the trigger in here, and this is a Kelvin Elite. And this one here, it works really nicely. The action works nicely. It's trued and all those sort of bits and pieces, and yeah, working really well. Anyway, guys, that's what I can tell you on this one. I've got some decent footage there, but 7mm 08 on at 3,000 yards, shooting like a champion. And yeah, we probably should get out and do it another day in a calm day and that sort of stuff. If I can work out how to order up one of them, then I'll get onto it, and there's lots of stuff we could do in that calm day. Anyway, guys, thanks for checking in. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time.